An amendment is a formal change that is made to the way in which a government operates, and it's important for governments to allow amendments or to have a process to amend their system of government because it allows the government to update with the times, right? As society changes, as the needs of citizens change, maybe the government has to change what it's doing. So the amendment process is very different when you compare the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution systems of government. Under the Articles of Confederation system, it required unanimous support amongst all 13 states to amend the system of government. So, in order to make any kind of change, all 13 states had to agree. So, remember, one of the original parts of the Articles of Confederation is that every state got one vote, regardless of the size of your state. So, let's say that a big state like New York wanted to change that to base it on population. If all 13 states don't agree, you can't make that change. So obviously, one state could just say, no, we're not doing that. So when you make it so that 13 out of 13 have to agree to formally change and amend the system of government, you've essentially prevented the government from ever changing. You've established it to be too difficult. Um, the process definitely changes under the Constitution. So it is important to understand the founding fathers, when they designed the Constitution, they wanted it to be amendable. They wanted it to be more easily updated than the Articles of Confederation system was. Um, but also, they wanted it not to be so easily amendable that it was changing on a fairly regular basis. We've only had 27 total amendments in our country's history, so that's not that many, and 10 of them all came in at the very beginning of at the beginning of our country's history. They were the Bill of Rights. So the amendment process is a shared process between the national government and the state governments. It's kind of a compromise. So it's a two-part process. The first part is called the proposal process. So any individual in Congress, rep or senator, can say like, I have an idea. I want to change something about our government. Once that individual senator or representative announces their idea, a vote can be taken, and two-thirds support is needed in both houses of Congress. Both two-thirds of the House and two-thirds of the Senate would have to agree for the amendment to be officially proposed. So that's step one, is the proposal part. It requires a member of Congress to introduce the change, and then two-thirds of Congress has to support it. Then Congress can decide one of two routes for the amendment to take after that, to officially be ratified or to be officially approved. Right. So again, it's up to Congress to decide which method they want to use. They would have to establish that at the beginning. The two choices are, it can go to the already existing state legislatures, right? So there is a Congress that meets in Washington, D.C., that's our federal legislature, it makes national laws. But there's also a Congress in Pennsylvania that meets in Harrisburg, our state capital, that makes just Pennsylvania laws. We have already existing state representatives and state senators that citizens of Pennsylvania elect, that are doing the business of Pennsylvania every single day. We could just use those people, right? And if our legislature would vote, and three-fourths of the state legislatures across the country would have to approve the amendment, that's known as ratifying it, for it to go into effect. That number today is 38 of the 50 states, right? So that's option one. Option two is that we're not using the already elected state officials that are out in Harrisburg. Instead, we have a special election that'll form a convention just to vote on this proposed amendment, right? So individuals would literally campaign to be elected to go to a special meeting just to vote on this amendment. And then, like, that meeting, that convention doesn't exist anymore. They just go back to whatever they were doing ahead of time. So the choices are either three-quarters of the already existing state legislatures would have to approve it, or three-quarters of specially elected state conventions. And again, it's up to Congress to decide like how this works. 26 of the 27 times we've just used like the already existing state legislatures. There's one special amendment, the 21st, that was actually we used specially elected state conventions to vote on that amendment or to ratify it. That was the 21st Amendment, 21st Amendment, which ends prohibition, right? It's the only time that we have passed an amendment that undid a previous amendment. Previously, we passed an amendment that outlawed the manufacture or sale of alcohol in the United States. The 21st Amendment, which was actually ratified not by existing legislatures but by special state conventions, is the only amendment that we basically have used to cancel out an amendment. Right, the 21st Amendment allows alcohol to be produced and consumed again. It ends prohibition, and again, it's the only amendment that was actually ratified by special state conventions.